a special diversion from books. We're moving towards real places, real cities in the Middle East this time. And the next talk is called Context as Catalyst. It's by Islam el-Mashtooly and Mouaz Abouzaid. And I think it comes at a very important moment when much of the architecture that we hear about in Europe that is to be built in the Middle East is big, showy, institutional, glitzy, a lake around it with reflections, lots of mirrors, lots of swooshy parametric forms, that kind of architectural showmanship that I think is anathema to our two guests this afternoon. Because from what I understand, their approach is very much related to the DNA of the Islamic city and how perhaps small and modest projects can actually gain from understanding the texture, the organic qualities of these kind of places. So please welcome Islam and Mouaz to the stage.
Thank you. Let's keep this here. Yeah. We are deeply honored to be here. I think it's also really important to mention the support of the happy faces that we in the talk here. I think it's really important to understand about our vision and our profound notion of architecture. We call it context as a catalyst, and we mean here the context, I think the context of practice plus the context of a place. So we came from Egypt and both for practice in Dubai. So I think it's really important to understand that how we understand the architecture, and this is our profound notion of architecture extends beyond design and construction. Actually, it's a spiritual act. And this is what been manifested, I think, in all old Arabic books. And also it manifested physically on the cities of the Islamic world. And this, actually, as you can see here, it's this kind of relation between the micro scale and the macro, and from the city, from the building, and the relation in between them. And I think the relation, it was too important because the Arabic city could be understood as a large home, and also the building could be understood as a small city. And I think by doing this, you can understand the relation between the city and the building, because you can understand that the architecture in the Arab world, it was more humble intervention to its context. And as you see here, it's a positive encounters and negotiation between what we build and what we believe. And this is what makes most of the Arabic city very, very alive. And I always call it, the journey between the mundane, which is the life, to the spiritual, which is something connected to the sky. I think you can see this manifestation greatly on Sultan Hassan in Egypt. It's really fascinating. I think no one can visit and ignore the fact that the talk I just taught. But it's not only about a certain place. I can explain many places here. This is from Iran, let's say. So the wider context of the Islamic state, I think it was really important about this spiritual effect between what we build and what we believe. It's really important, actually, to understand the maps, because the maps and history, it's a very powerful tool, and particularly in the Middle East, because the Middle East, it's always formed by this continuous political change. As we see here, this map in 750 in the Umayyad Caliphate. And on the next one, we can see the Middle East now, I think, and what the current Middle East looking like after the presence of the West and after the Ottoman Empire. And this how I think it's really important to highlight the fact that how the West or how the other people can see the Middle East, they see it as one mass, as one volume, but actually inside this mass or volumetric reading, we have different identities and different problems, in my opinion. The Middle East nowadays, I think it's what you see, it's challenges over challenges. There is a lot of construction, and you will hear a lot of things happening in the Middle East, but on the same time, there is a lot of destruction. And I'm not trying to be politically talk here, but I think from terms of urbanity and the humanity, it's really important to understand. This is a recent photo from Gaza. So we can see this kind of contradiction that's happening. A lot of promises, especially with Western architects. I think it was by Rim Koolhaas in Ras Al Khaimah. But also a lot of realities. I think destruction of one of the old heritage world sites in the world, like Sana'a in Yemen. So how you can find in the Middle East a complete ideas on cities on the desert, and also you can find at the same time starking realities. This you can call it the happy Middle East, and at the same time you can find the sad Middle East. So in terms of the practice, it's really not easy on this context. As you see, it's very changing, and you as an architect, you will find yourself in between these tensions. Reflecting this, I think it will start with the stories and narrative. The first narrative we can talk about, I've been approached individually in a project in Mecca in 2016, and as a Muslim, architect, I think Mecca it has a special place in our heart. And it was the first time to me even to travel outside the Middle East and come to WAF. It was in Berlin, 2016. So understanding the context of the larger Saudi area and the historical aspect, how the Kaaba, the holy mosque, and the buildings around and the mountains, which create a kind of intimacy and layering. It was really fascinating context. Our project is located on the Hajj, the pilgrim's journey route, which is, I think it's really important. It will be well seen, but also at the same time, it will be good to understand the Hajj as the culture mosaic. It's beyond the rituals, and I believe Mecca and Jeddah, one of the oldest cosmopolitan cities in the world, because you find all the Muslims comes from everywhere to do this. And the city is under so much pressure of flow, the idea between the people and the city, the mosques keep expanding and lagging. So the argument that the more issues, more buildings and less open space because of the demand of many people to be associated in the place. And the urban situation in Mecca started to be ended by just they need more buildings to be added. So doing this kind of anatomy of the city, so you have this kind of layering in between what the people build by themselves and what the amount of GFA need to be accommodated, and also between the mountain, which is the nature, which is it disappears day after day. The city is looking for a certain identity, I think, as you can see here. However, in architecture, you cannot find this identity very clear. So how to learn from the Arabic cities? We have an already precedent with Shibam in Yemen. It's very close by. And this city, it has all the manifestations that you can feel. The social ties between the buildings. It's the buildings like human. They have this kind of interaction and dialogue. And also it's very sustainable in a simple manner, very vibrant. So there is no harm to build on dynasties in the Arabic city. I think it was very obvious that it's there, but the idea how. And also the analysis of traditional urban fabric, how the open space, it was the real culture majlis, the meeting points between the building. This is the living urban room of the city, and also how the buildings were socially and the climatic response by nature, and with this is before LEED, before sustainability, before all of this. The people started really to deal with the harsh climate with a very smart way. Plus the architecture identity, it was really important. Mecca is under the Hijazi, Hijazi kind of style of architecture, and the use of the roof, it was really important. They called it kharja. So they go up on the roof to enjoy the good weather. It was a competition for individual client. The typical response, he want to maximize the much amount of the built-up area that he can build, and the brief it was to build a tower, and usually said Islamic architecture. So we started to question how we can do a 300-meter tower and just replace it, clad it with kind of arches and domes, and it will be Islamic. We take completely different approach. Our response is to go more horizontal and to have a stacked homes, and this stacked homes, it will be stacked gardens. And we believe the act of architecture is like an intervention. So it's an immediate occupation inside the city, and we started to question the city. Is it a big city? Sorry, is it a big house or a small city? And curating the guest experience, and we ended by having a small village rather than being a tower. And this is how the project looked like, using the materiality, the earth tone, the approach to the building. And there is no crazy game behind the design. It was very simple to be implemented, and also mimicking the shape of the mountain. So it's like an architecture act to deal with the city and the mountain on the back. And the most importantly, I think the project has this kind of a spiritual feeling. At night, it looks like lanterns, and this is what you need in a city like Mecca. The use of the roof, it was the fifth facade. It's a very usable space, and it's a place for people to come and communicate and have social moments. And the Mashtooly, the screen, instead of being just an object on the facade, it's become like a pavilion of lights, so the people can go inside and enjoy the experience. At the end, the city is us. We are the people who want to be on the city and want to enjoy this ritual and spiritual feeling.
Learning from informality is one of our favorite projects, the Egyptian National Pavilion, Rubabikia. We was waiting actually the moment to come back to Egypt after all these years living in Dubai, and we said that, okay, we have a chance, let's participate in the competition for the Egyptian National Pavilion. We won the first award, and then it's time to move to Venice and build the pavilion. So sometimes use the pavilion as a catalyst again to put all our ideas. Even sometimes it gives us a chance to work on new projects. And here it was more about learning from informality. Informal market was the free space. It was 2018. And when we came back to Egypt, we found that there is no free space anymore. It had been taken everywhere. And it's actually about the role of free space within the dense morphological and social urban fabric of the city. Looking at this image here, this is a huge graveyard in Egypt, and people are living there in between those graveyards. There is a huge market there. Also looking into other cases, like all the streets are full of street vendors, so it's keep changing. And before even we move back and travel, we started to mark on the map where we are going to find the issues. So looking at the train stations, looking at under the infrastructure, under the bridges, between the graveyards, all of those was potential places for the informal markets. And to be honest, we wanted to learn from it first. We didn't want to come and do same like what's happening, the government removing them, and then they come back, and then keep coming back and keep coming back. So we wanted kind of, have a discussion. We bought from these markets almost over 400 pieces, and that was our pavilion. Yeah. So even that's Rubabikia means the used items. So the street vendors is moving across the city, collecting all these elements, and then they're going back, sorting out, and then they sell it again one more time. So there is a kind of another parallel system moving within the city. And also the Cairo Festival City. We call this the Cairo Festival City. It was a photo taken by Rahab Sobhi. As you can see, this is Ataba Square. And I think we had a discussion together, like we wish to have a project here in this area. And after some years, we'll show one of the projects that also we got a chance to do the project there. It's from the object to the city. That's the anatomy of informality. So the street vendors is just scanning the entire city, is going to poor areas, rich areas, and then collecting all these items. Sometimes the antiques also is going out from those markets. It's the transit mode as well, a parallel system, as I said. It's a parallel informal economic to the city. So we cannot just kill it, otherwise there will be imbalance. Informality also as an alternative urban order. As you can see the street here, and people just took the full street. There is half of it for the market, the other half just was for praying. And then again, how the streetscape is changing during the day. In the morning it looks like something, and then during the day something else, and at night something different. And then we did our pavilion, and it was, all those objects for us was kind of drawing a lens from Venice back to Egypt to highlight these informal markets. And to be honest, each one of those items, we believe that there's a story behind it. It have been moving from my home to Islam home to someone else's home to someone else's home. So there is memories there. That was the shape of the pavilion. There is a cart in the middle. Those are our friends. We bought from them the items. And the cart, and we put the cart in the middle just like it's exploding and just projecting all those elements and all those objects that you see on the ceiling. And when we started to get the visitor to the Venice Biennale, they said that, oh, that's exactly similar to our situation in our country. So we're all the same. That's the word that we keep hearing. We're all the same, with different names, but we're all the same. As you can see, that's the Rubabika. Those are the items. And then again, learning from the informality was one of the lessons that we got from there. When we came back, we wanted to do something for the market there. We started to work on the market, and we believe that the only thing constant in this world is the change. And there is actually a choice between moving or improving. We can just go to the desert and build something new, seem like what's happening, or we can just improve the current situation. So we decided to improve it with the temporary structures, with something that can work with them, and that was the interventions that we started. So that's the street, that's the market that we proposed for them. Flexible, easy to move, and enhancing, and it's still also kind of matching with the same materiality that they are using there.
Also dealing with the situation that we are faced also in Cairo, like, also this dense morphological fabric, it has its own problems that, the urban sprawl, and as you see here, the difference between the two situations, and because of the demand and the overpopulation, that instead of having some green pockets on the cities, it became like was infrastructure, the roads and bridges, it's everywhere. And the larger the city, the greater potential damage that can happen. This is not only, it could be in our cities, but I think it's a very global issue. And I think it's really important to highlight, how the people starving for trees and greenery. It's like almost one tree for each 100 citizens, in my opinion. But also there is another reality, which is the people in informal settlements. They already have a clever solutions by utilizing the rooftops in a more self-organized way, and also how they can create this kind of self-amusement, pigeon towers, and it will be the communication between them as a vertical social space. So we took one as an experimental process. We took one of the typical water towers in Cairo and started to purpose it for a new structure and trying to create a really like new vertical oasis inside the city. And it was the idea is to create a very functional system that clearing the air and have more green space, and trying to reimagine the skyline of Cairo by having these water towers placed and creating a kind of different destination that connected on the sky, like has this kind of melodic effect, and especially during the sunset, it's good really to go vertically and utilize one of the existing structure and giving life. And the more important is the social space and the green space that it offers to the city. Yeah.
So moving from Cairo to another place, maybe 3 hours far from Cairo, it's Maghaga. It's a village there near from Cairo. And we call this project the rebirth of the project because it was a real rebirth of the project. We have been working with the client, the post office, the Egyptian Post, in several places in north, south, east, west. And here, this is more in the middle. That's just to give you an understanding of the context. So it's village, but then it starts to get dense more inside where people are living. So that's the center of the place. And this is actually what you see here, or what's behind this fence, what's behind the trees, is the post office that you cannot engage with. It's totally blocked with the fences from around. Not only this, we found another challenge that the building was going to be demolished. But then after discussions and with the client, and then, no, let's keep it, let's remove it, let's keep it, and then we decided to keep it. Even with this condition, we decided to keep the building. To be honest, that images, we felt the wrinkles of the building are there, and we wanted to keep it. Even we started to do a lot of research about the building, how it was before. We found like maybe few images that gives us maybe around 20 years back, but we couldn't see how this originally the building looks like. We said we are not going to touch this bricks. We are going to keep it because that looks more original than a paint that was just produced yesterday, and then I just hide all this history. The situation was even harder because half of the building was with a lot of issues with the foundations, so we had to work more hard and more hard with our contractors and everyone. And we brought everything back, and then the project started to at least look like a skeleton that we can continue working with it. And then we started to look at the other spaces that we want to add. More spaces means more job opportunities for the villages, so it's helping also the community in a way. And we started to add the new spaces that you can see here in black. This is to be more humble with the building, so they didn't want to force something there. And we wanted to have the building just to be the jewelry of the plot. And then again, looking at the functionality, opening the spaces, getting the building to be welcoming from outside. This is the vertically, you have the ground floor connected to the street, and then the upper floor is more for people. And then we started to blend the old and the new together in a very gentle way. That's exactly the same image where it was hiding the post office. We totally opened it, and then we started to construct it from inside to get, and then this is how it looks now from inside. So changing, and we believe that this kind of changing is going to change outside as well. So now we are working into the urban spaces outside, trying to adding something to the community and to the village. Moving with the same client in Cairo, reviving the past, finding new life. That's what we are trying to do in Cairo or in Egypt. That's another building, a huge, much bigger than the other one. Again, it was a post office, but there is the main post office closer to it. So we started to have a discussion with the client that what if we just do adaptive reuse for that building. This is exactly where you saw the Cairo Festival city. So it's exactly in the same place. And this place, they have the electricity market where they sell every single element related to like devices, bulbs, whatever. And then to be able to collect also information, we had to watch all the movies that was produced 1945, which is much more closer to the building than us. And this was one of the ways how to collect information and documentation, maps, old maps, and so on. And then we decided to convert this building or transform it into a social and commercial hub or commercial magnet to serve the entire community. And by subtracting all the new ads that happened to the building during the years, we subtracted that one, and then we started to have this kind of a new heart for the building from inside, which is kind of making it more vibrant from inside, and then connecting all the co-working spaces together. And those co-working spaces is actually connected to the street outside, to the shops down, so they can have their own office here. Even they can have their own headquarters, but still the building have like kind of this sandwich of the ground and upper floor that work as a public spaces. So the ground floor open to the street, and then the upper floor is more like a restaurant, so we can invite people to come again one more time to the building. With a very gentle interventions and humble changes to the facade to keep the origin of the building. And we didn't stop here. We wanted actually also to kind of work with the urban fabric one more time, reorganize it, getting inspiration from the Cairo Festival and the colors of Egypt and all of this, and bringing back here. And we started now to work on the ideas to create some shared street, close some street, so it can be more organized, and it can help this building as well.
Yeah, I cannot be here without speaking about Iraq and Baghdad, and I think we have this debate inside the Middle East, who starts first. So I was saying that Iraq came and the history came later. So it's really important to speak about what's happening there. So after the invasion of the United States to Iraq 2003, and this is what happened in the context of the political and the war situation. There is no winner, in my opinion, in the war. And this is what left from one of the important buildings that it was built in the 20s. And I believe actually, it's really difficult to come from very far and started to enforce yourself to educate people how to be democratic, or even search for something that it never existed till now. So I think it's very damaging for the city. So our project actually is located in front of the river, inside this culture streets, and I'm really happy to see this kind of images. It's very recent images. Despite all what's happening in Baghdad and Iraq, the people still relate. We have this common quote in the Arabic world. They say that Cairo writes, Beirut prints, Baghdad reads. So I think this is really important to understand the fact of how this nation lived as a one body. And it's very hurting when we hear something happening in Gaza and you cannot interact with this. And also the same what happened to Baghdad. So our approach, it was really very humble intervention inside the damaged wall by creating another culture street. So the building here, it will be like a small intervention inside the wall. And I call it the journey of pain and hope. There is a lot of pain, but I think there is a window of hope, and architecture can help and support this idea. And we try to make the memory of the place to be there, and the time-space reading between what built and damaged in the 20s and what we are building nowadays. And the building, actually, it will become like an urban approach. So it will be an excuse to connect all the cultural nodes in the neighborhood, and our building, it will be the center. So it looks like a rupture, but good rupture, and connecting all the plazas together. But it's most importantly, it's an excuse for the Iraqi art to present them work inside this natural canyon. And I believe also using the materiality, it should be very authentic to the place, and it acts as culturally well. When we have something with a good purpose, it acts as a lantern inside the community. And as you see here, the buildings has this kind of emotional dialogue, because I believe buildings like human need this kind of interaction in between and create a very nice social space, because our title of the talk, how we can understand the architecture as a tool for social transformation, and this is what we need. And I think it was really important to understand the value of the open space and shaded, and also using the idea of the courtyard. So.
Moving to another zone, Dubai. We cannot be here without talking about Dubai. So we have a project, we call it X Space, Dubai Urban Greenway. And coming back to the past and see how this Sheikh Zayed Road was before. It was never meant to be a highway, but unfortunately now it's a highway. And this is how it looks like. I got lost in this roundabout 100 times, living there 18 years, and I keep taking the wrong way when I'm over this bridges. What we see here in red, this is actually what's splitting the city in two pieces. That's how I see it. I was trying before to cross the road just to go to the other side, and it took 20 minutes by car, 20 minutes by foot to reach something that I can reach in 1 minute. And this is kind of, looking at this also as well, the two sides of the coins, where you have already some spaces and some urban spaces that you can walk, but still with the new Dubai, I would say, it's still hard to move there by. And we started to look into interventions that can happen through these areas where we can stitch back the urban fabric of the city. And then we bring people that they can move from that side to that side. And it was about developing an urban fabric focused into sharing, integration, and tolerance into a human scale urbanism. And then we took one zone and we started to zoom in there and then during working in the project, the Dubai Marathon started to come there. I said, oh, we are right. We should do something. We should keep moving. It was just an initiation. And then when we came back after we finished, we started to have a discussion with the government. And we were lucky that it was part of and again, I still believe that the only thing constant in this world is the change. And to be honest, I have seen this a lot when I was flying the drone in the desert, and I felt like a reaction of nature. Every time you put a road there, the nature is giving, again, a kind of a hint that be careful. And we started to work on that project. It's more like transforming the infrastructure and that's the existing situation. This it took in some of the stations. It takes like 40 minutes. Now it takes like 2 minutes or 3 minutes to cross the road. And we started to ask questions like, can the building become an extension of the landscape? And then comparing, the vertical workspaces and then creating other spaces in there as well. This is what's happening in the road. Again, with a similar approach that we are working not in a skyscraper, we go more into a landscraper. We started to activate this area. We started to go with the road more under, so you can have the road and you can still have parking to solve the issues that we are facing there as well. And this is kind of transforming the city infrastructure. That's what we thought about. It's I would say, it's an idea. It's not about the building, it's more about stitching this area fabric together and about creating this kind of layer by bringing back the fabric of the city together. The roof also will become again an accessible stage and meeting place. And then again, having this place where you can meet and gather instead of just crossing with 140 driving in that road just in no time, where you don't enjoy let's say, the Burj Khalifa view, for example. Again, framing the moments as well, and we believe that the future of our city is about people, and that's how we started to approach the project. After 2 years from this idea, we found it in the vision of Dubai 2030. We said, okay, so maybe someone is listening. So it was not about building it, it's all about just sending the message, and that's usually what we try to do. Other issues that also we find usually, and those kind of projects, sometimes it's coming through a message in Facebook. I received a message here from a lady, from one architect, and then I noticed that she passed away and her mom is behind her account, and she was just helping the community to build roofs, to give them access to clean water and stuff like this. And then I started to talk to her and I found that she's building like a mosque, community centers and then we started to have discussions together. And that project, I believe that it started with a tragedy, but it ended up with a hope. I was just there 1 week ago just to, follow up and see how we are going to move with the project. This is the context, that's what they have there. And unfortunately, they built a huge structure that doesn't really feel as part of the context. But for us, it was like kind of opening a new hope for the community one more time. Those people, we met them, we talked to them, we are trying again to learn from them what's their needs. And we found that they are they don't have hospitals, they don't have clinics. So we decided to convert this mosque into a community center to be not only a place for praying, education, and also for learning something new. That's the structure that we have. We started to get a small plot beside it. They wanted to build a 5-story building there to have a hospital. We told them, please wait, let's just see your needs, and then we will work with the project slowly, step by step. And then we started to kind of link those two buildings together to come up with the community center, plus also adding landmarks, because people will be walking from other 3 villages coming to visit this place, and that becomes the new community center for them. Finally, we got approval after 2.5 years suffering, getting approvals and rejection, and hopefully very soon we'll start the construction. And parallel in the office, we are testing, we are working on the project and trying to enhance it, and we have now the final drawings and ready for the construction. Again, getting inspiration from their community as well, the way how they use the roof, the way how we use the transitional space outside, the waiting areas. This is the clinic from inside, the waiting areas all open and exposed and having, that was the worst place in the project, and now it becomes one of my favorite zones there, where you can have access to the mosque, have access to the clinic, have access to the field from the background. Those are the people that we met them. Mahmoud is there. I was just showing him something in my mobile. And then while passing, I found this small girl sitting down on the stair there and studying. So they deserve to have a better life. With moving with the same approach, we have another project in Malawi that we are working now with it as well. And I believe that everyone have this right to life. This is what we should do. And we'll leave you with Islam for that.
Yeah, ending with the last project, I will talk about Mouaz's idea, the right of life for everyone. And I think it was really important to understand the forced displacement. It's a big and major issue now in the Middle East. It started with Iraq, then it went to Syria, then Yemen, and now in Palestine. So I think it's really important to talk about these issues, because for us, it's really important as human and also as architects. And I think in 2016, I was personally touched with what happened in Syria, especially in Aleppo. And I said my only concern about this, how to reflect this in a kind of architectural manifestation that it may help, because I believe we as architects have the responsibility to build on these reflections. We cannot be like hear the news and just react with completely ignorance. I believe it was a very tragedy, and this is how the people lived inside and how they live outside when they are trying to cross the border. It's a journey of life and death, actually. It's not an easy journey, and following the numbers day by day, it was really keep increasing, and it was completely tragedy. So studying the border situation between Aleppo and Turkey, and this is the timeline you can check from 2012 to 2015, it's became the population of the camps on the border, because the people cannot cross the border, they stay on the camp. And I don't know how the life it could be when you have a safe life, and it became turned to be a number on a camp. It's really, I'm not sure any one of us can really accept this situation. Following just the maps, you see how the camp, it became a permanent city. So we said, what if we really transform these camps to be nice shelters and bring an architectural concept that the people can build by themselves, and it will be, again, a nice intervention, and it will keep grow with the infrastructure there and create this kind of shelter, we call it shelter on the edge, from camps to cities. And I believe it was really important to understand the political conflict in the world. On that time, Trump was running for presidency. I was talking about the wall. And actually, in this modern age, I can't understand why we as humans cannot live in peace with each other. Because the land is the land of God, and we are just growing for a short amount of time. So I think it was really important to rethink the situation between the countries, and we came up with this new urban typologies, which is we call the border cities, and this is 2016. So, but I think what we imagined it's something really how we can help the humanity in terms of having a hope and blessing, because we all believe that, and this is from Quran, and if anyone saved the life of a person as he saved the life of mankind. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll get there. You showed a lot of work, my God.
But in 30 minutes.
But I'm very amused by the fact, no, you're very well done. But I'm amused by the fact that some of them are sort of wishful. The refugee camps become almost like a luxury architecture. I know you didn't intend them to be luxury, but in a sense, they are, all this sort of suspended surfaces and greenery, and they're very utopian, a kind of dream. Yeah. But on the other hand, you've been careful to be very realistic about being in touch with the DNA of particularly Egyptian cities, but let's say Islamic cities in the broadest sense, the Middle East and of course Maghreb, extending to Morocco. We're talking about a big chunk, big part of the world that does share medieval origins, irregular town plans. Many of these places that you show have evolved organically, and I think that's quite extraordinary.
Yeah. Thank you.
And yet, when it comes to Dubai, you can put this kind of sand dune thing over the motorway, which is sort of at the other end of architectural aspiration. So you're hovering between these two worlds, the world of sort of entropy, of formlessness, of kind of people's natural ways of making meaningful places. And then there's this kind of dreaming as architects. Is there any conflict in there?
Start.
Yeah, I think we're always in this tension, how we can really act contextually, and also because I think the practice of architecture in our era, you cannot be just locally inspired or contextually inspired. I think it's become broad now, architecture as a profession. So in most of our practice, we approach it really from this spiritual feeling, as you mentioned exactly, like, to understand why the city is built. And
What is?
from the spiritual side of why we do things. The purpose. I think it's really important to build something with purpose. And once you find the purpose, I think anything else beyond this, it became secondary.
Well, obviously you're ambitious. You're both. I think you live in Dubai, but you're both Egyptian, right?
Yeah.
And you both work in other practices, or you kind of moonlight. I don't know if you're familiar with this term, which is sort of, you work on your own projects during the night or at weekends or when you've got the time. And many of these have been quite successful here at WAF. How many times have you won awards here?
Yeah, I think we are lucky that each year we won a WAF award.
Each year you've won something. Okay, these guys are compulsive, habitual WAF participants.
Collectors.
So yes, please.
But we are not more than Sanjay Puri for sure.
Well, of course, I think WAF as a platform to encourage new architectures is very much part of its
it's an amazing platform
jurisdiction.
to show all these projects and ideas, and I think talking about the Dubai one, I think the WAF was a big help, because the government, even when I came back, they told me, because they didn't know that we're working on that project, because it was just an idea, initiation, and they started to contact us, and then we had this kind of
So is it actually progressing?
Sometimes it has, yeah.
Because I remember, I've only been to Dubai once, but at the time that I went there, they were talking about the tube line, the metro stations, and they were perhaps an opportunity, but those are built, or are those donut things actually existing?
Well, sometimes you need to make a noise outside so someone can listen to you. So that's what we try.
And then, so you're giving them those ideas in the hope that they will pick them up.
Yeah, and it will be, as he mentioned, it will be part of the government vision of 2030, the movie that they announced. They announced Mouaz project as this is the vision. So I think it's really, and I mentioned this for Paul yesterday in our speech. I've been really with this quote of Labius Wood, resist the idea that you need a client to build a project. Sometimes you have to take the initiation by yourself, because I believe if you are a journalist, you can write something. If you have a doctor, you can do something. And if you have an architect, you have to propose something or talk about something.
Well, that perhaps is that how the post office project came about? That you found the post office and then how did that work?
No, post office is different. It's actually what we are doing also was helping.
That became the community
we started,
reference
to have a
point.
discussion with the. So
they came to you.
Yeah.
Actually, the client is here. He traveled to Dubai to interview Mouaz, and I met him, and it was this kind of nice story that you are everywhere in the social media. Why you don't do something for Egypt? So
they have 4,000
they didn't really know what they wanted you to do then. Did they want you to make a new post office and something else?
No, they have a program. They have a program and idea, and they just. I think in terms of this, they are doing something good for benefiting the people, and they give.
So the client understood that.
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes we're challenging the program to add something to through the research, through the discussion, and it's good to find someone that's listening to you, especially in Egypt. That's really good. Yeah.
I mean, I wondered when you were showing that, what kind of similar building type there may have been before, like from when I've been to Islamic kind of cities, and the madrasa, the school, was often seemed to be a reference point, a place for people to come together.
It's multifunctional.
It's a multifunctional.
Yeah, and
so is it unfair to say that the post office is kind of coming close to the role of the madrasa, or is that? How do you regard your new typologies in relation to the old ones?
Yeah, can I take this one? Because it's good to speak about Mouaz's work sometimes from a critic point of view. It's the first act, I think it was really successfully done. That first of all, the definition of a public building. The building, as Mouaz mentioned, it has a fence, which is already a kind of barrier. So the first step is to remove this fence and to clear the setback and give this area to the community. So it's become a plaza in the front. So this is the first step. The building, it should act as a public use. The second, what about adding extra functions to it to have many jobs for the people? And one of them, it was adding the extra space, which has become like framing. It's like a jewelry box. It's framing the old building and adding extra spaces, using the roof as a prayer hall. And also because one thing Mouaz didn't mention because of the time, the post office in Egypt is like the bank. Yeah. It's not only the, so the people go there.
You can keep money there.
Yes, yeah. So it's a very public building and it will be used by many and it works for longer hours. It's not just a building. So it's reimagining a small building to be a community hub. It was really fascinating.
I mean, of course, I was impressed by your pictures of markets and of, I loved your Biennale project with all the objects hanging. You could have actually gone a bit further, made even more of a mess. It was quite restrained, really, compared with the destruction of bombs. Yeah. And you showed a few pictures of destruction in various places in the Middle East, and without the need to go into the present conflict, which we're all aware of, has the bombing actually, have you flipped it in your mind and seen the effects of bombs as an opportunity? Yeah. And I kind of would like to compare it for a second with London after the Blitz, when London wasn't completely destroyed like Aleppo. Mm-hmm. But the amount of bombing has had a continued ongoing effect on London, because it still means that there are some relatively recent buildings that can be knocked down and something can replace it, whereas in Paris, which was not bombed, it's an intact historic city. So are bombs an opportunity?
I think all conflicts are creating an opportunity in general.
All conflicts?
Yes. Inside from outside. So it pushes us as architects to find solutions there. I think maybe we didn't have time to present the project, but we had another proposal for the same pavilion where we talked about the water justice because of all these issues that we have in Africa between the water. And we wanted to use the pavilion as an invitation for all the African countries to come and just find a solution. So we believe that maybe some conflict can push us as architects to, to present some solutions or even to have the discussion without having the wars there.
Well, I think this extraordinary interesting work. I love the fact that you incorporate entropy and formlessness and kind of disorder into your work. I just, I hope that you don't get successful and then become glitzy.
No, not.
That's my,
is
that a promise?
Did that chance before?
Well, some people are very persuaded by the effects of the money.
No, we try to do two things, actually. We try not to have a style, so we're always contextual. And this is something maybe you see to each project.
It's contextual, but it's also socially, yes. It treads carefully, doesn't it, in terms of what people expect and what they want.
True.
And you're saying that against a background of, many people have lost their worlds completely. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I think the world needs more people like you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to both of you.
It's so kind of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.